Our big story tonight. Millions of people get their federal benefits, that's from the VA or Social Security, and they put that money on a debit type card each month. But what happens when their identity is stolen and then the crooks spend that money on those debit cards? Well, that's something Kyla Boshi worked to find out, and what he found was not pretty.
We first met Milton Zimmer, or Z as his friends call him, in September. If you missed our story, he's the Vietnam veteran who discovered someone had stolen his Social Security and VA benefits to make online purchases for random items.
Are these purchases you'd normally make?
No, not really, not at all.
Wrinkle-free cream and beauty cream?
Do I look like I have wrinkle-free cream?
Z complained he'd been getting the runaround, trying to get his money back. He filed a complaint with fraud services at Direct Express detailing the bogus charges. But the claim was denied.
I said, oh man, that's the same thing that happened to me.
Since our original story, we heard from several people in a similar situation, fraud victims whose claims were rejected by Direct Express. They all received the same form letter.
I'm a nobody. They don't care.
More than 4.5 million people get their federal benefits, including Social Security and veteran disability, automatically deposited into a Direct Express card account each month. These debit cards are typically issued to people who don't have a bank account. The money is a lifeline for people like Terrence Brenneman, a disabled veteran.
I can't stand up straight, can't walk very far without getting out of breath.
In July, Terrence noticed some odd charges on his Direct Express account.
$9.99, $9.99, $9.99, $9.99, $9.99, $9.99, $9.99. It's like a broken record, huh?
It appears the charges were connected to Google Play, where you can buy apps, movies, and games.
Do you play video games?
No, I don't play any video games at all.
Are these purchases you would have made?
No, they're not.
What makes you so confident?
Because I don't spend $9.99 every day, 47 times a month.
In September, Andrew Kahili found his account had been drained too.
657, 657, 657, 657, 657, 657. It's like tongue twisters.
Someone had used his Direct Express card account to make purchases connected to Facebook in Ireland. In all, there were 138 purchases, all for the same amount, all in one day.
I've never given anybody my card for any reason. I've never given anybody my PIN.
Andrew promptly filed a claim with Direct Express Fraud Services, which responded.
Their conclusion was that I had approved every single one of these charges.
That's right. Direct Express told Andrew those purchases were legit. The company responded, writing, after a thorough investigation, Fraud Services found there was nothing fishy. No error occurred, and Andrew would not be reimbursed for his losses. With no Social Security disability benefits for the month, he had no money.
I use it for my rent, my car insurance, I pay my dog's pet insurance bill.
Across the country, there have been countless stories of stolen benefits. Then seniors, veterans, or people with disabilities struggled to get their money back. Over the past 3 years, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has received 370 complaints about Direct Express, and the Better Business Bureau's website is filled with negative one-star reviews. One person wrote, "They do not deserve to handle government funds." Other customers complained about rude and unhelpful customer service. They had difficulties reporting fraud, and fraud claims were denied.
Do you think they did a thorough investigation?
I don't think they did. I think that they just, they don't care.
The government contracts with Comerica Bank to administer the Direct Express program. Comerica declined to answer KGW's questions. Previously, a spokesperson for the company said, "We take pride in our work supporting the Direct Express program and providing the service to the millions of Americans who rely on it to receive their federal benefits."
My identity was stolen a couple of times when I had a Direct Express debit card.
J.B. Sims is one of 8 named plaintiffs in a class action lawsuit against Comerica and affiliated companies, which alleges fraud victims routinely had their claims denied. He's also worked to help other veterans get their money back.
Most of them are not as sophisticated, if you will, as some people that have regular bank accounts.
After we contacted Comerica asking about Terrence and Andrew's fraud claims, both men said they got their money back. Hundreds of dollars in benefits were suddenly refunded. There was no real explanation or apology.
The Direct Express program has outlived its usefulness. There's no use for it anymore. People that get their Social Security can opt for any payment vehicle they want.
Sims encourages veterans to get off Direct Express. They can open a free checking account through the Veterans Benefits Banking Program. And people on Social Security can use an alternative bank or credit union. And that's what both Terrence and Andrew have done. They now receive monthly benefits through direct deposit in hopes of avoiding another bad experience with Direct Express.
Kyle's with me now. I got to say, not all that impressed by the company's reaction. Is anything going to change? Are they going to do something better?
Good question. Hopefully this spotlight helps put a little more pressure on them. But there are a couple things. One, there's a class action lawsuit that we mentioned. That's still in litigation, dealing specifically with this program. Also, the government has said we're investigating. Comerica Bank, which runs Direct Express, admitted as much in regulatory filings. And then finally, the Office of the Inspector General for Treasury is looking in. They've done a number of audits looking at the Direct Express program. Another report is due to come out in mid-January, and we anticipate that to be fairly critical to the program.
And I know you said there's millions of people that have these cards. Do people have to use them?
Good point. They don't. And that's the big takeaway for me, at least, is if you don't have a bank account and you're getting Social Security or VA disability benefits, it goes to the Direct Express program. But you can step back and say, no, I don't want it to go to Direct Express. I'd like to open up a checking account at my local bank or credit union. The money will go there instead, thereby avoiding Direct Express altogether.
Wow. And they can tell the VA direct the money there.
Exactly.
Yeah. Good. I'm glad you brought that up. Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate it. Now let's get to some of your thoughts on our big story from Friday. We told you how the city cleared a notorious homeless camp called The Pit that's beneath the Steel Bridge in Portland, near Portland's Old Town neighborhood. The construction company working to repair the damage to the bridge from a homeless campfire hired a private security company to patrol the land and keep people from camping there again, and to protect the construction equipment. Well, we had a crew go out to the pit today to see if the strategy to keep those camps away is still working. You want to guess what happened before we show you the new video? Are the tents back? A drum roll, please. Here you go. Not a tent in sight. To be fair, many of the tents used to be right under the bridge ramp, but that land now has been covered by boulders, as you saw, which makes it harder to set up a tent. Although, if you look around the city, you'll see it's not impossible. But no tents on the grassy areas either. So for the time being, at least, the security strategy does appear to be working. And it's one that many of you would like to see elsewhere. A viewer on YouTube wrote, more and more real security forces are needed. We've got to get tough on the homeless. This, let's say, stuff has got to stop already. We want our city back. Make Portland the most unfriendly place for homeless in the country. Make this a model city. And Austin emailed us. It seems, as proven in this scenario, that hiring public-private security officers to patrol recently cleaned out campsites is a real no-brainer, since they are there to enforce it. The city should consider embracing this concept as a pilot project for a year and see if it's more effective. I will happily pay a little more in taxes if this is one of the answers to solving trash and/or homeless camps. So why do people think it'll work? Well, we know that many of you have seen what happens when there's not a security presence at a recently cleared camp. Just ask a viewer named Bob.
We have homeless that have parked themselves on Northeast Fremont between 112th and 115th. We came back from vacation about 2 weeks ago. It was cleared out except for one camper or truck camper that was sitting on the ground. And now it's not only back to what it was before, it's even worse.
All right, thank you, Bob. Now, to be fair, is having private security on every street corner in Portland feasible or even reasonable? Yeah, probably not. But maybe there's a solution in the middle there somewhere, especially for some of the bigger encampments. By the way, we did not get a single bit of feedback against the security being there, or else we would have included it in our segment here. But if you have opinions about this, either way, whether you're for it or against it, let us know. You could email us. The address is thestory@kgw.com, or call and leave a voicemail. The number is 503-226-5090. Coming up next on the story, the state finally removed a 200-ton fishing boat from the Columbia River last week. The project cost $1.5 million. And did you know that in the past, ship removals like that would have taken money from Oregon students? That's right, the Common School Fund paid for ship removal until now. We'll explain when the story returns. I have to say, I don't get this one. For years, the cleanup of Oregon's rivers was paid for out of the general school fund. So it's kind of like textbooks, computers, ship cleanup. I really don't have an idea how those two are related, but that's probably for another day. The good news, schools are no longer footing the bill, and the work is continuing. Last week, crews finally got this massive ship out of the Columbia River near Rainier. It's called the FV Tiffany. It's a 200-ton former fishing ship built back in 1939. It sank back in 2021, spilling fuel. The Coast Guard did what they could to clean up and get the ship floating again, but really it just sat there ever since. And it was not doing the river any favors.
The Tiffany was a particularly hazardous vessel. Not only, was it affecting use of the waterway, but it was really a hazard. Some of the samples taken from that vessel showed really high levels of PCBs and lead, which are hazardous to the environment and potentially hazardous to people. So that was a high priority to remove that vessel from the Columbia.
Now, the estimated cost to get it out of the water, $1.42 million. As I mentioned in the past, whenever the state would help remove a ship like that, the money would come out of the Common School Fund, taking money away from students. But that changed during this past legislative session. A bill that did really not get as much fanfare as it should have, House Bill 5029, directed how certain settlement dollars should be spent, and it allocated nearly $19 million from the Monsanto Roundup weed killer lawsuit towards removing ships like the Tiffany.
Abandoned and derelict vessels pose a hazard to waters statewide. There are hundreds of abandoned and derelict vessels in waterways across Oregon, which not only affect the environment, but people's ability to use and enjoy what should be places for the public to go and fish and swim and otherwise make the most out of the waterways that belong to them. So these hazardous vessels are really a huge problem everywhere in Oregon.
That doesn't sound good. How big is the problem? Well, just in the Portland area, we're told, including things like abandoned sailboats, motorboats, and recreational vehicles, the number's something like 175 in the waterways. And when it comes to big ships like the Tiffany,
for the Portland area alone, there's 8 large vessels of concern, and the estimated removal and disposal cost for those is more than $8 million. And then statewide, there's 11 more. That's estimated to cost an additional $26.2 million for removal and disposal.
So yeah, there are a lot of them out there, and it's not cheap to get rid of them. Our next question for the Department of State Lands was, well, okay, are the owners picking up the tab? You know, consequences for abandoning them? Well, couldn't that settlement money be used for other things if the owners were paying?
The state always wants to keep the owner on the hook for paying for cleanup costs. It can be challenging. So sometimes the owner can't be located. Sometimes the owner doesn't have resources to remove the vessel. Again, these are very expensive cleanups. So sometimes, you know, though we try to keep owners responsible and make sure they foot the bill, sometimes it's just not possible. And we still need to do our job and keep the waterways healthy and clean by cleaning up these vessels. So we pursue recovering costs from owners as much as we possibly can.
Yeah, well, I hope you get more of them. The state has not pursued any criminal penalties against these boat owners yet. We're told there is not a direct path to make that happen easily. What they can do more easily is hold the owners liable for the cleanup costs, but as you just heard, even that can be kind of hit and miss. In the meantime, that settlement money is also being used to help the state's new abandoned and derelict vessel work group, which will send a report to lawmakers and Governor Kotek in the spring on what they think should be done to keep these boats out of our waters in the first place. They'll also look at what kind of funding they need to keep the removals going in the future without taking dollars from the Common School Fund. Coming up next on The Story, it's Monday. That means we're digging for old. How a special anniversary led us down a rabbit hole about the popular toy that got its start right here in Portland, Oregon. It's something that those of you young and old will likely remember when The Story returns. Ah, yes, a special anniversary inspired tonight's Digging for Old segment. 100 years ago today, two brothers named Walt and Roy created a new studio in California. It was October 16th, 1923, when the Disney Brothers cartoon studio got its start. That's right, Disney. So we wanted to see what kind of Disney-related items the Oregon Historical Society has stashed away in its collection. We were not disappointed. Of course, you've got the classics like the wind-up Mickey Mouse toy from 1977 and this child's watch from the late 60s and early 70s. This Mickey Mouse is actually an unauthorized variant of the famous character. Production of the watch and other items with that version were stopped when Disney won a copyright lawsuit against the manufacturer. And while those items are certainly cool, our producer fell down a rabbit hole with a Portland connection when it comes to another Disney item in the collection. So, a lot of you will likely remember these scenes for a Viewmaster. The Historical Society has all of these depicting the different parks within Disneyland. For those of you who don't know what these are for, maybe this will help you remember. The little scene cards that would go into the Viewmaster, and then you would just kind of click through the images, giving you a 3D view of whatever scene you chose. I remember using one a million years ago, it seems like, at a relative's house. It was super cool. Loved clicking through all those slides. But did you know the company that brought the Viewmaster to market was actually based here in Portland and then in Beaverton? Let's explain how we got here. The stereoscope, as it was called before Viewmaster, was fairly common around the turn of the 20th century. This one's from 1904. Viewers would look through two lenses, one for each eye, and view a card that showed two identical images. But through the stereoscope, the images would appear combined, giving the illusion of one large 3D image. Pretty cool, huh? They were popular with tourists. People would buy the scenic cards as souvenirs or even as a way to experience a far-off land if they didn't think that they would ever go there in person. This is an example of a Niagara Falls card from around 1900. But here's where we get into the Oregon connection. In 1919, a Portland man named Edwin Mayer returned home from World War I and decided he was going to buy into a local company called Sawyer's Photo Finishing Services. Well, by the late 1920s, Sawyer's was the largest producer of the stereograph scenic cards in the country. But much like the Niagara Falls card, each card had only a single image and needed to be swapped out for a new card in order to see something new. So Mayer and the president of Sawyer's, Harold Graves, were looking for a way to improve that. And then came a chance encounter between Graves and this man, William Gruber, at the Oregon Caves in 1938. Gruber was taking pictures with a crazy contraption, two cameras strapped together, and Graves wondered what on earth is going on here. Gruber explained that he was trying to create a new stereograph image using a machine that he invented to put multiple scenes onto a small viewing reel. And oh yeah, one more thing. They were in color, not sepia tone. So Gruber, Graves, and Mayer formed a partnership, and Mayer named the product Viewmaster. The trio introduced the invention at the 1939 World's Fair, and it was an immediate hit, as you can imagine. The U.S. military even ordered 100,000 of them to use for World War II training. This is a version that would have come out probably around 1946. Business was good. The company named Sawyer's, remembered, brought on a new building on Southwest 20th in Portland that it used for offices and production. But it grew so much it became cramped. In 1951, Sawyer's moved to a factory along Hall Boulevard in present-day Beaverton. And if you thought business was good before all of that, 1951 was a boom year. Why? Well, that's the year that Viewmaster got licensing rights for Disney properties. And business took off again when Disneyland opened in 1955. Viewmasters were one of the most popular toys in the country for decades, and you could just get them pretty much anywhere. Here's an example from 1975 in the Historical Society's collection. This brings back any memories to any of you out there? But like so many toys, especially these days, the popularity didn't last. Viewmasters could not compete with video games in the 80s and 90s and was sold a number of times in that span. Toy giant Mattel bought it in 1998, but they closed the Beaverton facility in 2001, which made the Viewmaster back in 2001. It's a run of 60 years that was over. Mattel donated Viewmaster items to the Historical Society, including some really cool props that were used to help make the Viewmaster cards so that many people could gaze at and wonder. For you Wizard of Oz fans out there, here's the good Witch of the North prop that was used to make the Wizard of Oz Viewmaster reel in 1957. The Oregon Historical Society has some Disney props too, including these cabbage and a log, both used to create the Fox and the Hound. That came out with Viewmaster in 1980. And how about this Disney piece? A lot of you will recognize this. It's Mickey's sorcerer hat from the Sorcerer's Apprentice reel, which was created in 1978. Pretty cool stuff. We'd love to hear any of your Viewmaster memories through the years. Let us know, will you? You can contact us the way you always do, and we always love it when you're sending us your emails. The email is thestory@kgw.com. You can also call and leave us a voicemail. Tell us about your memories using Viewmasters. Do you remember the first time you used it and what that was like? Bet it was pretty cool. The voicemail phone number, 503-226-5090. Hey, by the way, the KGW Gate Toy Drive, it's coming soon. We need organizations to sign up and help collect toys for kids. Last year we collected 35,000, and we'd love to do more this year. Head to the kgw.com/toy to learn more. We also want to thank Planet Fitness and Tigert for signing up already. Going right to the head of the class. Well done, gang. Please join us. Head to kgw.com/toy. And that's the end of our show. Thanks so much for watching. But remember, the story, our collective story, that never really ends. The good stuff is coming your way next. Enjoy your night. I'll see you right back here tomorrow at 6:30.